How you doing, guys? This is Eric. This video is not off topic, but it's something that I don't talk about too often on this channel, but it is definitely related to preparedness, and that's physical self-defense or martial arts and things like that. For whatever reason, I've seen a couple people, and these aren't all people, these aren't like idiots and stuff, but they're a lot of people who recently have been saying how jiu-jitsu, wrestling, grappling, things like that are total trash for real self-defense in a street fight and are only good for sport competitive environments. And they usually bring up a couple recurring reasons on why this would be the case. But overall, I think it's wrong, first of all, and it shows an improper mindset of how they're viewing the situation. First of all, if you're talking about self-defense, the thinking of it in terms of a particular art or style or martial art is just kind of wrong to begin with. Obviously, if you're training for a sport, you train within that rule set, whether that's kickboxing, whether that's wrestling, whether that's judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, no-gi, submission wrestling. They all have their own little quirks and things like that. So if you're training sport jiu-jitsu in the gi and you don't do leg locks unless you're above a certain belt level, obviously if someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night, leg locks are on the table. Everything's on the table. Gouging their eyes out is on the table. So to think in terms of, oh, which art should I study to be be able to defend myself in the best way, you study everything that you can. You want to know every possible way. It's kind of like saying, which tool am I going to put in my toolbox when I'm going out to do a maintenance job that I have no idea what the job is? You want as many tools as you can fucking cram in that thing, because you don't want to be stuck with just a wrench when you need a drill and a screwdriver and a router and all these other things. So obviously, it should go without saying that the most well-rounded fighter is going to be the most able to defend themselves in any number of scenarios. And speaking of scenarios, the thing that these people normally bring up as why jiu-jitsu or wrestling is shitty for street fights is because in a street fight situation, you don't want to be on the ground because there could be multiple people and come kick you in the head or whatever. And that's true. That could certainly happen, but there's a couple reasons why that train of thought is, at the very least, incomplete. The first one is, that's just one scenario. It's been proven through a lot of actual competition with very, very little rules that one-on-one, the superior grappler will almost always win, especially if it's up against someone who hasn't done any grappling. If it's someone who is like a champion kickboxer and they have world-class takedown defense, yeah, that's really good. But someone who's done no grappling and is really good at striking versus someone who has done no striking and is really good at grappling, one-on-one, the grappler has a huge advantage. Now, it's very true that you can't count on there being one-on-one in a street fight or a real-world situation, but it's also true that one-on-one fights do happen all the time, even in a street fight environment. So to completely push that fact out of the way as being irrelevant is not smart. The other aspect of that train of thought of why it's incomplete is that if going to the ground is so dangerous in a street fight, it's something that you absolutely don't want to happen, because that's true. You probably don't want to purposefully jump in a position where you can't see what's going on and you're tied up with one person unless you have to. Is that if that's true, that that's such an undesirable place to be, then of course you want to train in the skills that allow you to prevent that from happening, like wrestling, judo, other types of grappling that have takedown defense and controlling the standing clinch. And you want skills that allow you to either get up from bottom, like wrestling, like jiu-jitsu sweeps, things like that, or control and end the fight as quickly as possible if you are on the bottom, like jiu-jitsu. You can have arm bars, triangles, things like that, allow you to control and take out this person as easily as possible. So, of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't know striking. Striking is usually the first thing that happens in any sort of conflict. But it's also very true that grappling situations, falling over, being pushed over, being tackled, could certainly happen because it is such a disadvantageous position to be on the ground, particularly on your back in a normal fight. People try to put you there often. So even if you don't decide to take the fight to the ground, someone else may decide to do it. And if they have their buddy standing there ready to kick your head in, then you probably want some good wrestling skills to stop that from happening or to be able to get back up if it does happen. So the bottom line is, and what everyone should be able to see pretty clearly with just basic logic, is that the most well-rounded skill set is always going to be the best. And obviously, if you're talking about 3 guys running at you, a champion kickboxer is probably going to be able to fend them off better with no grappling skills than a jiu-jitsu black belt with no striking skills. But you don't have to choose between one or the other. You can have, so let me put it this way. Who's going to be able to fight off 3 or 4 attackers better in random situation, or any street encounter for that matter? A guy who has champion kickboxing skills, or a guy who has champion kickboxing skills and elite grappling skills? Not really a hard question to answer, because then there's all sorts of other scenarios when the elite grappling skills are going to be completely essential and dominant. And there's also a lot of situations where you want to be able to control or subdue someone without damaging them. That could happen all the time. It could be someone who's maybe trying to commit suicide, but they're just out of their mind. They're not trying to hurt someone and you want to stop them. Or someone who's freaking out for whatever reason. Maybe they saw something happen to someone else and they're trying to rush to them, but it's not safe. I think there's all sorts of scenarios. And if your only arsenal in your martial skills is punching and kicking, you're going to have to bash this person's face in to stop them or to control them, which is not always going to be the best scenario, especially if you're talking about facing legal repercussions. Even if you feel you have the legal justification to use that kind of force, punching someone in the head could kill them, or kicking them, or any of that stuff. And it's a lot harder to control the impact from that because you don't know how fragile they are, what's going to happen, versus just choking them out or something, which it's basically perfectly safe. You have to decide to hurt them or not with chokes like that. So bottom line is, you don't have to choose if you're talking about self-defense. If you're talking about a sport, you have to choose the rule set and follow that rule set. If you're talking about real world, there's absolutely no reason why you have to say, do I want to be good at striking or do I want to be good at grappling? And I'm saying this as someone who's not elite in either. I've done very, very little striking training, but I absolutely see how it's much better in many different situations. I've done some grappling training, and I absolutely see how it's better in some situations. So I don't know why people think you have to decide which would be better, because even if one's better in 55% of street encounters or 60% of street encounters, which would be pretty significant, that still leaves a massive skill set that's not there. So you want to be using, and just because you're using martial arts, you want to train weapons and other stuff too. There's no reason that you just want to limit your skill set to anything if you can help it. It's best to be as well-rounded as possible. So that's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think, and if you've done any training and things like that, what you think the gaps are and everything. But just like with money and portfolios, you want to diversify. That's the way to know that you're going to have, or to be confident that you're going to be capable in the most number of scenarios that can happen.